The Arizona Cardinals can 100% change the national and local narrative surrounding the organization in 2022.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals, Friday. Got a big show today. I'm Alex Clancy. Thanks for following along. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. You can check me out on the Locked On NFL YouTube channel as well on Thursdays with Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans. You can check that out, YouTube, and free and available wherever you get your platforms. Big show today. I'm talking broad storylines and the fact that the Arizona Cardinals can change the narrative surrounding the organization starting in 2022. With the tumultuous, I guess is the right word, off-season, ups and downs, clunkiness, contracts, potential retirement, speeding, etc. The Cardinals have a chance to completely shift the narrative surrounding their organization. I'm going to talk about it in all three segments. First segment, Kyler Murray. Does he deserve the contract that he was given? Will he perform up to the level of the contract he was given? That's one thing that could change the narrative for the Cardinals in 2022 because you'll have a young, potential all-pro, Pro Bowl quarterback for the future. Second segment, did Kliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim deserve the contract extensions after the downfall of the 2020 and 2021 seasons? Will they live up to their contract extensions? Will they last through their contract extensions? That's something starting in 2022 that could potentially change the narrative for the Arizona Cardinals nationally and locally. And finally, is Hollywood Brown a wide receiver one? Is he a wide receiver one? That's going to be a fun one because we don't know yet. We've seen flashes, we've seen dropsies. We've seen highs and lows from Hollywood Brown in Baltimore. With this high-powered passing offense, we'll find out in 2022 if Hollywood Brown, especially through the first 6 weeks of the season, is or is fringing a wide receiver one plateau. I'm going to hit it all on this edition of Locked On Cardinals. So, Kyler Murray, did he deserve the $160 million guaranteed with injury contract that he was given? That's one I look at. You look at the guaranteed money. Will he live up to it? And there's a couple different ways. There's a couple different things to discuss here. One, it's difficult for any quarterback to live up to the dollar amount that they're getting paid after their first contract, unless your name's Tom Brady and you're never the top paid quarterback in the NFL when you're in New England. You know, he didn't worry about the big number. He worried about the guaranteed number, and they just kept giving him guaranteed contracts down the road. So the big number wasn't there, and that kind of ruined it for everybody. Like, Aaron Rodgers is a great case study. Aaron Rodgers has been one of the top paid quarterbacks over the last handful of years, and they haven't won jack. And when they did make the NFC Championship game, they got completely embarrassed by the 49ers and Raheem Mostert. Like, I feel like we need to remove ourselves from comparing play on the field. I mean, unless Kyler wins, 3 straight MVPs and the Cardinals make a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, it's really hard to quantify play on the field to actual contractual dollars that were given to a specific quarterback. Do I think he'll live up to the expectation? Will he live up to the expectation? Maybe expectation more than the actual dollar amount. That's something that could 100% change the narrative. If he does, the Cardinals have a quarterback for the next 10 years. He's 24 years old. That changes the narrative. The Cardinals have never had that. Ever. They've never had it. A Pro Bowl year in, year out quarterback who they drafted. Never had it. Okay? At least not since, Chicago. Okay? I'm not a historian of the Arizona Cardinals. I'm a now of the Arizona Cardinals. That would change the narrative for so many reasons. One, it would put another slap on the rear end for Steve Keim for drafting, even though I do say that it was selfish of Steve Keim to draft Kyler Murray because he knew that he should have been fired in after the 2018 season. And if Kyler Murray didn't work out, he would have been fired anyways. But Kyler Murray was the best chance for him to keep his job. So it's good that it worked out, but it was a selfish choice. I'm glad it worked out, but it was still a selfish choice, in my opinion. It was the Hail Mary for Steve Keim's job that Kyler Murray worked out. Okay? I firmly believe that. It's good that it worked out. So let's stick with that. If Kyler Murray works out, now the Cardinals will be grouped in with other NFL teams that have young star quarterbacks. Kyler Murray is a fringe star quarterback right now. But with the ups and downs in the 2020 and 2021 season where they unceremoniously ended the last half of both seasons, the jury's still way out on Kyler Murray. They're still way deliberating. This is going to be a 2-week deliberation on Kyler Murray in football terms, which is probably another year. They were like this with Josh Allen too. And I compare Josh Allen and Kyler Murray a lot on this show. Not because of stature, but because they do things that their body type shouldn't allow them to do on an NFL level. And because of that, that's why I compare them. And Josh Allen was not good his rookie year. He was getting better his second year, and then he popped in his third year. Kyler Murray showed flashes more in his third year than Josh Allen did, but in his second year than Josh Allen did, but his third year, like if Kyler Murray would have gone through pretty much the whole year like he did in the beginning, like he would have been an MVP candidate if he would have played the whole season like he did through the first 7 weeks. But this is the year where if Kyler Murray takes that Josh Allen step, the Cardinals, the narrative will be around him. A narrative around him will be like, yeah, things are not going so well, but they have Kyler Murray. And I'll quote the great Mina Kimes, who's becoming a friend of the show at this point. She says, Kyler Murray is a guy that you win because of. And if Kyler Murray can take that step, if he lives up to this contract, and if this contract gets ripped up in 3 years because he deserves more money, that will completely start to change the narrative of the Arizona Cardinals organization. What else could potentially could begin to change the narrative of the Arizona Cardinals starting in 2022? Kliff and Steve Keim's contracts. I'll dive deep into them next. Locked On Cardinals. But first, Dave. Talked about Dave. We love Dave already here on the Locked On Podcast Network. If you've got an unexpected bill that pops up, if you need to fill your tank, if you have to buy a wedding gift for your cousin or whatever, and you don't have the cheese, Dave can help you, okay? Dave's the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's a little extra money. It kind of floats you till the next paycheck, whatever. Dave's there to help you when unexpected expenses come up. You can literally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out with a little help from Dave. There's no interest and there's no credit checks, okay? Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download the Dave app and think of it as a helping hand. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up for extra cash and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees applied. Banking provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. The Arizona Cardinals can 100% change the narrative surrounding their team starting in 2022. Think about that. The last time the Cardinals had this type of expectation was after the 2015 season that ended in the debacle in Carolina. They came in week 1 at home, prime time, Monday Night Football. Jimmy Garoppolo led Patriots with Tom Brady on the shelf due to Deflategate for 4 weeks. Chandler Catanzaro misses a field goal, and Bruce Arians was quoted as saying something to the sort of, we never could recover after week 1 loss. That was the last time they had pressure on them to perform. This pressure is different. It's projected pressure, because of the contract extensions, because of Kyler Murray's big contract extension, like the contract extension of the coach and the general manager, because of the trade for Hollywood Brown, because the defense doesn't look necessarily the way it should this close to the regular season starting, because of who they drafted with Trey McBride and the offense, Zach Ertz coming back, James Conner, Gerald Williams signing, Rodney Hudson coming back. The pressure is different, but it's still pressure. And it's the first time they felt pressure since that 2016 season. We all know how that ended up. They could 100% change the narrative come 2022. Will the contract extensions of Kliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim look like the definition of insanity or look like a strike of genius from Michael Bidwill? If this ball bounces the way of the latter, that is another pillar in the strengthening of the foundation of the Arizona Cardinals organization as a whole. If the Cardinals win 11 games this year, and Kliff Kingsbury has shown that he's grown and learned from his mistakes over the last couple seasons during key situations where all the Cardinals needed to do was get 1 first down or 2 first downs to run the clock out, when in reality they would go 3 and out in 45 seconds. Kliff Kingsbury's contract, I will be the first one to wear all the egg on my face. He's going to need to do something that statistically he's never done before, which is finish a season strong. If the Cardinals win 11 games this year, I hope, I yearn, I implore all the NFL gods to have the wins be more spread out. Don't want to start 7-0 and then end up 11-6. You don't want that. That ain't what you want. I implore whoever's out there, whatever NFL gods there are, if the Cardinals win 11 games, that it's more spread out and they win a couple down the stretch when needed. Maybe one to win a division. That would show a lot more growth from Kliff Kingsbury. I know it's backwards and counterintuitive, but teams get hot. And I know there's no momentum week to week in the NFL. There isn't, or season to season. It's not like other sports. But winning so clumped together and really, even though employees of NFL organizations and coaches and players and whatever, they don't coast. That's not what they do. That's not how they got to where they are now. But the Cardinals didn't look good the second half of last season. And if Kliff Kingsbury's contract proves to be a stroke of genius by Michael Bidwill, starting in 2022, the narrative will start to shift. Steve Keim, same thing, different parameters. If this defense holds up, if Cam Thomas and Majai Sanders both make big impacts on the defensive side of the ball, and if Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins both take their respective steps forward, and if Byron Murphy supplants not having a cornerback one on the Arizona Cardinals with himself as the CB1 and Marco Wilson takes a step, it'll show that Steve Keim drafted and signed players because the trust that he had in the players that were already rostered was validated. There are a lot of words in that sentence that I just said. There's a lot of ifs with the 5-year contract extensions that both, or 4-year, it was to 2027, that both Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury got. This is more worrisome to me than the Kyler Murray contract, bearing fruits. The Kyler will live up to the contract. I find it difficult to stomach still the contract that Kliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim got. I think it was too early. I don't think there's a problem with being a lame duck coach on the last, or GM on the last year of a contract. I don't see it as a deterrent for anything. Prove it. Prove it. Prove that you can win a playoff game. Prove that you can coach week 1 through week 17. Prove that there aren't bad penalties. Prove that you can call a couple plays in a row to get 2 first downs so you can go into victory formation. Those things have not happened when the Cardinals have needed them, when they've absolutely needed them, and not when they're up 30 points. This is what worries me more, this segment as a whole. The Cardinals can 100% change the trajectory of the organization starting in 2022. These contracts for Steve Keim and Kliff Kingsbury need to be looked at as a stroke of genius and not just another edition of the Arizona Cardinals #DOI definition of insanity. And that's DOI definition of insanity. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. I'm going to have a whole segment for Hollywood Brown. The Arizona Cardinals can change the trajectory of their organization starting in 2022. Is Hollywood Brown a wide receiver one? I will tackle that next. First, betonline.net. I mean, I'm not a very good singer. Betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs, man. Like, last time I checked, the Cardinals were 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. Like, that's kind of where they were. Kyler Murray's always been around, between 20 and 25-1, 30-1 to win MVP before the season starts, and it fluctuates back and forth. If you want all the futures you can stomach, betonline.net's got you covered. It's your number one online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, final segment. Alex Clancy here. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. The Arizona Cardinals can change the trajectory of the organization starting this season. Will Kyler Murray live up to his potential with the contract? Will Kyler Murray take that next step and become a bona fide star in this league? If so, the Cardinals' trajectory has changed. Will Kliff, Kingsbury, and Steve Keim's contract extensions look like a good decision by Michael Bidwill? We'll find out after the 2022 season for better or worse. And finally, is Hollywood Brown a wide receiver one? And you could say, well, this is kind of a little unfair because he hasn't been part of the ecosystem. He hasn't been in this offense yet, really, even though they ran, a cousin of it at Oklahoma with him and Kyler Murray. But the reason why Hollywood Brown is the subject of the final segment is because Steve Keim is tied into this. They traded a first-round pick with huge needs elsewhere. Huge. Edge rush, cornerback, offensive line, interior defensive line. Pretty much any position except for wide receiver. And they traded a wide receiver. They traded the first-round pick for Hollywood Brown, who has 2 years left on his deal. They exercised his fifth-year option. His agent has already negotiated contract extensions for DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and A.J. Brown, all of whom didn't play to the team option year of their rookie scale deals before getting a contract extension. So he's playing for a very team-friendly number this year. I think it goes up to $13 or $14 million next year, but he ain't going to play $13 or $14 million next year if he even has an average season this year. That's not what's going to happen. So, if Hollywood Brown becomes a bona fide wide receiver one in this offense, it will change the trajectory of the Arizona Cardinals moving forward. Because Kyler Murray will have his young receiver. Rondale Moore, jury's still out. I don't think Kliff Kingsbury utilized him properly last year. Maybe it was because the game hadn't slowed down for him yet, Rondale Moore. But when we saw Rondale Moore with the ball in space, magic was happening. Magic was happening. And then they reverted back to using him as just a wide receiver bubble screen guy, and I don't really understand that, but we'll see if those things have changed. If Hollywood Brown is a wide receiver one, we'll find out through week 1 through 6. They play some very good teams, and they play some very good defenses. The first 3 teams that they play, Chiefs at home, Raiders on the road, Rams at home, you better believe he'll be seeing some double teams. And you better believe Kansas City is going to put up some points. And you better believe the Raiders are going to put up some points. And you better believe the Rams are going to put up some points. So we'll find out with DeAndre Hopkins on the shelf. And he's 30, okay? So with DeAndre Hopkins on the shelf, can Hollywood Brown go into that wide receiver one role and flourish and thrive? Because if he can, through those first 6 weeks, and DeAndre Hopkins comes back and he becomes Nuke Hopkins like we always know he's going to be, this offense is going to be a top 5 offense in the NFL. Hollywood Brown needs to show it immediately. Sure, unfortunately, they play a perennial playoff team, Super Bowl champ from a couple years ago in the Kansas City Chiefs Week 1. It's at home. He and Kyler Murray, best friends. Like, we need to see Hollywood Brown flourish. If he can become a wide receiver 1, and it starts in 2022, the Arizona Cardinals can 100% change the narrative, the direction, and the trajectory of this organization, potentially in a way that we've never seen before. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you Monday.